Oklahoma has hired a general manager for football. It's Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl since 2018. Per release from the school, OU is, quote, implementing a progressive new structure uniquely tailored to meet the most current challenges in college football. Sounds good. Smoke, what do you think?
Slam dunk, home run, bang out of a job of hire by Brent Venables, which touched on this last week sometime about improving their personnel department with someone that can provide with structure, operation, and that's what he did at the Senior Bowl. Unearthed guys, but also he ran that entire thing all week, and he's always done a beautiful job of laying it out for NFL scouts.
Sounds like would have been a great hire for any program, but he is going to Oklahoma, which means that we need some Oklahoma boots on the ground reporting. So, of course, we have to bring in our friend Colin Kennedy from Sooners Illustrated to give us a little bit more perspective on what this means for the Sooners. Colin, with Venables on the really every hot seat list I seem to check on the internet, and Oklahoma coming off a losing season, what does this move signal to you about what he's trying to do this year?
I think it really says two things about Oklahoma football and the direction of this program. We knew going into this job opening and the process of making a hire that this was going to be one of the most pivotal for the program in relation to its future. But I think that this shows you that not only is Oklahoma ready and willing to adapt to the new era of college football, and for what it's worth, Brent Venables and co. have been pretty adaptive behind the scenes, made some significant hires, this just being really one of the most significant. I think it also shows you that this is what people think of Oklahoma football. This is the opportunity in front for OU as it continues to transition into the SEC. And in the form of Jim Nagy, I think exactly like Smoke mentioned, this guy checks every single box and more. Arguably overqualified, I don't know. Easily one of the most significant additions we've seen in terms of off-field personnel in all of college football. I really cannot wait to see how this one shakes out.
Well, if everyone just says personnel, that's the easiest box that he's going to check because he's one of the better guys out there. He's been on the road for 18-plus years in the NFL, so he knows that world. But what Oklahoma needs is somebody to come in there and just reconstruct their entire recruiting department. And that's from the personnel standpoint, the roster construction standpoint, from who you're retaining to who you're going after, but also the operations standpoint in recruiting. Because recruiting is just not going out there and saying, okay, we want to get every five-star. Recruiting is going out there now and finding the best players that fit you for the current roster, but also for the future. And that's something that Jim also brings, someone that's a forward thinker and always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, tons of experience for what it sounds like Oklahoma needs. I mean, there were two kind of main goals going into this offseason, right, CK, is that you needed to overhaul the offense, and then you also needed to help with personnel. And so this checks that second box. But something you said, it seems like Nagy might be overqualified for this position. So as you just cover the college football landscape as a whole, what does this tell you about just the importance of a general manager role nowadays?
Yeah, it's one of, if not the most important hire that you can make in your program right now. And I think when you look at Oklahoma, it really felt good about the current structure in terms of on-field staffing, actual football side of things, but not just personnel. Operationally, you have to be able to have someone who I don't think people realize isn't necessarily working for the head coach. You need to hire somebody who's working alongside the head coach to oversee your entire operation. And that's exactly what Jim Nagy is getting ready to do for OU. I think this is someone who, beyond some of the things that we've just mentioned, when you look at the general manager position, in Jim Nagy's role specifically, on top of all of this, he's going to be in charge of negotiations, how to formalize your budgets in terms of where you're spending, who you're spending money on. And then I think most notably the subtle layer to this hire is that Jim Nagy's going to come in and essentially have some say in terms of the revenue share model and what's getting allocated to OU football. And in the OU market, you're going to have an ability to bring in a couple extra bucks if you play this thing right. And I think Jim Nagy's background in terms of marketing and brand building, what he's accomplished with the Senior Bowl, that plays a role too. So again, this isn't just a hire in your personnel department. This is someone helping the head coach to oversee your entire program. And Jim Nagy, hard to find one better to do it.
CK, and like you said, the thing that I take away from this is Coach Venables is taking over the defense now. And when you're doing that, now you can't be as focused on the number one thing that I believe in college football, which is personnel. So when you have somebody that comes in with that much credibility, you know right now, I don't have to truly worry about what's going on in the personnel world or the recruiting world, because Jim Nagy's going to take care of that, because he's going to build this football team and a vision of what the coach wants this football team to look like.
I think what's really significant, Smoke, is that Oklahoma is essentially putting Brent Venables on a pedestal and really letting him control his own destiny, because this hire in Jim Nagy allows him to really lean on someone in the personnel side. But then they just hired Kevin Wilson, a guy who was extremely accomplished his previous tenure at Oklahoma. He's coming in to help Brent Venables in terms of game management, game planning. And I think this really sets up for Brent Venables to go into the 2025 season and right the ship that he's captaining. And whether or not it goes well, it's no sweat off the back of Jim Nagy either, because I think OU is not only investing in Brent Venables' future, this is a move in terms of hiring Jim Nagy that OU is saying, we have our guy that we really believe can oversee OU football for the coming years in this new current landscape. And so I'm very interested to see how the dynamic between these two plays out. But for Brent Venables, you couldn't ask for someone better to help you go into a pivotal season for your career, because everything is on the line for him.
You said it, a pivotal season for his career. The way that I introduced you into this segment is by saying that Brent Venables, and reminding people that this is a big season for him. He's had 2 losing seasons at Oklahoma. When you think of player personnel and bringing in Jim Nagy to help with that, how much impact can he make this season, though?
Tons. I think you're going to have him come in and he's going to evaluate this roster. A roster, by the way, that is going to help Brent Venables navigate what is that pivotal year. And I think we've already heard rumblings about OU wanting to go into the spring portal window and make some moves. Now, that's obviously going to be Jim's call. But when he comes in and he really dives into the depth chart and examines what the future holds in this personnel room, I think that there is an ability here for Jim Nagy to have a lot of say and to have even further impact going into that season that we feel everything is on the line for Venables. And so it will have a lot to do with how much advice Brent is willing to take from Jim. I do think that that's something to consider. But in this hire, I think that this is both Brent Venables and Joe Castiglione, the athletic director, giving Jim Nagy a vote of confidence and saying, we're going to give this man the keys, and whatever he says from here on, it goes.
Yeah, it's not just who the hire is, it's what it signals in terms of the future of this Oklahoma football team. Colin Kennedy from Sooners Illustrated, thank you so much for being here with us today. I have a feeling that you guys have been writing all about this news and will continue as he puts together his front office staff. Sounds like it's going to be very similar to what we see in the NFL. So check out all of the great work at SoonersIllustrated.com.